Hey, folks. I wanted to throw another tag out into the tarot world today, and I thought, well, there's so many going on, maybe I should wait. But there's also something to be said about striking while the iron is hot, right? So I I should also preface this by saying that I think this is kind of a nebulous request, a nebulous idea. But I'll tell you what prompted it. There were two things. The first was that I was reading a blog about uh, card reading in general, and it had such a pedantic kind of fundamentalist attitude toward the author's technique that I wound up rolling my eyes a little bit as I do. Um, but for I'm having a hard time articulating it because I'm trying not to be pedantic and fundamentalist. Um, I so there was that, and it was already on my mind to do a video about kind of how I feel about the system of tarot, or not even the system necessarily, but the ways that I have found I need to process reading, or the things I need to do in order to make a reading successful. But knowing that the things that work for me aren't the things that are going to work for everyone else, either. So that's part of the puzzle. So it was this idea initially of reading this blog that was sort of, the tone was a bit nasty, about anyone who disagreed with the author, and I won't say who it was, and it's not anyone that I watch regularly or read regularly. I just stumbled on it when I was Googling a system I hadn't heard of before. So that was the first sort of wonky thing that created, or it prompted me to create this tag. And then the second one was a series. I don't know if they do this anymore, but NPR used to have this sort of audio essay series called This I Believe. And I actually wrote one of them and recorded it for the local Rhode Island. I live in Massachusetts, but the Rhode Island affiliate of NPR. And it was a great series. It was basically people just sharing an audio essay about something they believe in. Family, pizza, whatever. Mine was actually about that there's unexplained. I believe sort of in magic and the unexplained, which is funny because as I get through this this discussion, I'll probably talk more about how I don't have a really magical approach. So it was that series called This I Believe, and this sort of pedantic blog post that got me thinking about how fascinating belief is. How fascinating it is to hear what other people believe in, and the idea of belief in general. Because to me, belief is something that you sort of feel and you know, but not so much that you can't, that belief can't evolve. I think one of the things about belief is that it does evolve. I think about Lincoln, for example, who believed in abolition, but who had some pretty racist and colonial attitudes prior to becoming the president. And then over the course of his journey, he listened and learned and realized that his initial sort of liberalism wasn't there yet, and he evolved. So, I mean, that's kind of a strong example, but I think for a lot of us, our beliefs will evolve over time, and hearing how people's beliefs evolved and hearing what people believe about something is interesting to me. It's also interesting to me when we can talk about what we believe and learn from each other and let that enhance our experience, rather than finding that threatening and making it about defending our own belief at the expense of someone else. So this is something I'm calling I Believe in Tarot, to sort of riff off the This I Believe essay format, but without stealing it directly. So hashtag I Believe in Tarot. And the idea is just to talk about what you believe about the system of reading, about your system, about how you got there. So it's kind of a nebulous sort of rambling audio video essay discussion about your tarot beliefs in an effort to enlighten one another and to explore one another's belief systems about this kind of fun tool we all agree on, but which everyone comes at from a different technique and a different tool and a different system. So, if this sounds interesting to you, again, I'd love to see what your system is. And I know this maybe, it's not like a normal tag where you have, a handful of questions to answer. This is really more whatever you want it to be, but based on the idea of, that we believe certain things about what we do. If you want to share this, please do. And if you make a video on it, let me know in the comments so I can go and watch it. Because again, this is fascinating. So I'm gonna talk, hopefully pretty quickly, because I'm already 6 minutes into this, introductory thing about some things that I believe, and they're not necessarily things I haven't mentioned before, but I'm sort of interested in putting them all in one place. So here goes. I thought I probably should make notes and then didn't, and whatever. So here are some things that I believe and that have evolved over the course of my reading life. So the first thing is that I really do believe tarot is a game, in the same way that life is a game, and I believe that that makes it really, really cool to me, that it actually doesn't, that there's no evidence that it has any esoteric symbolism built into it, and that whatever connection it has to things like Kabbalah, Gnosticism, astrology, Buddhism, whatever connection it has to those things is purely accidental and purely coincidental, is to me more magical than if it had been designed as some sort of, codification of wisdom, that it's a game, and life in many ways is similar. It's random, it's partly chance, it's partly skill. It's sort of a combination of those things. There are, like Monopoly, you roll the dice and hope for the best. And there are choices you can make that affect the outcome, buying that property, on, whatever railroad, B&M Rail or B&O Railroad, whatever it is, winds up being a good choice. But even the choices are dependent on things that happen later on, and people landing on that property. I don't remember. I don't think I've ever finished a game of Monopoly in my life, but, so the fact that it is a game, to me, is what's cool about it. So that's the first thing I believe about it. The second thing I believe about it is that it doesn't actually matter what system you follow, as long as you know what system you're working with when you sit down to read. So what I mean by that is the following, I guess. If you're getting ready to do a reading, and you sort of pause and say, okay, I'm gonna read with this spread or this non-spread. I'm gonna shuffle in this way. I'm gonna select the cards in this way. I'm gonna answer this question, or read on this theme, and you then shuffle and then you lay out and do the reading. Sort of the very act of setting that intention, I guess, is more important than that you are using a Rider-Waite-Smith system, or that you're basing it on astrology or Kabbalah. Those things may filter in, but it doesn't matter whether your approach is game-based, whether it's Marseille style, whether it's esoteric in some way, but that you have the system in your head when you sit down to do the reading. As opposed to making it up as you go along, just shuffling the cards, sitting down and saying, okay, I'm going to use this spread and I'm going to answer, you know what I mean? Like that the intention is there when you sit down, but that whatever your approach is, what and maybe you sit down one day and your approach, your head has Kabbalah in it, and the next day it's got something, right away, or whatever, you know what I mean. That it doesn't actually matter what system you follow or what systems you follow, as long as you decide on the system for that reading before you shuffle and draw. So that's the next thing I believe. um the third thing, I guess, that I believe is that it works, and I don't know why. And I believe that I don't want to know why. Um, because that to me again seems cooler. If one day there's a scientific reasoning behind why it works, whether we find out it's synchronicity or something else, I don't want it. I like not knowing. I like the mystery of it. Because there are times where I do readings for people, and almost all of my readings lately are from a distance, usually by video. Sometimes to people I've never met, sometimes to people I have, but the precision and the clarity with which the reading will um, almost always approach what that person is going through and the question that they're asking is just mind-blowing. And I don't believe that I have any psychic ability whatsoever. I'm not, um I'm just not I'm not given to it. I even, I've been in my apartment for years. I've had friends say, "Oh my, I think your place might be haunted. I feel like I just saw," I've never had those experiences living here. I've lived here for as long as I've lived here. So I'm not necessarily sensitive to that. But something somewhere makes these readings make sense. And I don't know what it is, but I like not knowing. Um, and then I guess the final thing I'll say I believe in is that I believe in evolving beliefs. Um, and I also believe in doubt. And I'll talk about those two things individually. So in terms of um, the evolving beliefs, it's that I believe that for me to be the best reader or practitioner or whatever language we want to assign to what we do. And sometimes I feel like we get too caught up in the language, on choosing the right word. And I say that as a writer, but there is no right word most of the time. So, um, um, what's less important, or rather, what's more important than the words we choose, is that we choose them with empathy, I think. But that we recognize that as we go on a journey, we will evolve and we will learn new things, and that we're open to that. For example, I mean, just as a very simple example, when I started reading, I believed that it was pretty silly that anyone would ever want to read without, those Rider-Waite-Smith images or something based on them. And over time, I came to believe that it was too bad that so many decks were based on that. Now I believe how amazing it is to have different systems or different types of decks to work with, and how each time I add a new kind of tarot system into my life, it adds a new layer. I believed at one time that it was necessary for me to learn the astrological associations, um, and then I believe now that that actually has no bearing on my reading. It's that I believe is not necessarily what I need in my readings. I have found other things that work more clearly for me. But I also believe that that's really important to a lot of readers. And thank God, that we have such different systems, because, otherwise we would only need one person, one reader. If everyone read the same way, then, we wouldn't need more than one. We wouldn't need more than one deck. We wouldn't need more than one book. It's through all these different systems and through all these different evolutions of belief that all of these amazing books come. So the idea that over time, like with my weirdly chosen Lincoln, I don't know why I reached for the Lincoln example. There's many examples of people who have evolved, but that's kind of the most famous one. Or at least it's the one I reached for, and I'm not going to judge that, because whatever. So I believe that if we're open to evolution, if we're open to new things, if we're open to new systems, then the things that we believe about what we do will grow. They won't be threatened or constrained. Um, they'll be enhanced. So that's what I mean by evolution. And that's one reason why I'm curious to see other people sort of answer or respond to this tag, because I think that it's worthwhile to think about how other people approach and the things that are important to each reader. You know, astrology has not been important. Lately, a numerological system has been to me, but that never was the case, you know, up until a few months ago. But having opened myself to that, I can't even begin to tell you how much more precise and practical my readings have gotten in a way that's really important to me, by opening myself up to that idea. You know, and a year ago I might have said, I can't, you know, I might have believed that I couldn't do that. I couldn't read that way, and that wasn't for me. But being open, and this isn't, you know, I mean, I guess the other thing I want to say too is this isn't about me like, oh, look how great I am that I believe this thing, and, you know, I've evolved in this way. That's not it. It's just, it's the idea to me is that it's about being open. And the idea of evolving. So there's that. And then the other thing is doubt, and the idea that I believe we're not going to be perfect all the time. I believe in the idea that we're going to get it wrong. And I believe that sometimes it's okay to say, this doesn't work. You know, I've had times where I've sat down with cards and it just won't come. I've had weeks like that. And I think this is silly. And in a way it is silly, because I don't take what I do all that seriously. So, you know, there's something silly about saying I'm going to find in these pieces of cardboard guidance that I can't get elsewhere. It's okay to doubt that can be possible, but it's also healthy, because if you love something and you doubt it, I think that it forces you to think about it differently and to wrestle with it. And I think, you know, whether it's religion or tarot or science, you know, a scientific theory, I think if we accept the doubt, or we accept the initial impulse, that's more dangerous than doubting it and coming on the other side of it with a new layer of belief in it. You know, do you know what I mean? So I think it's good to doubt sometimes, and to question, and to, you know, even doubt our own theories, because it makes us engage with the theory in a different way, and it makes us look at things fresh, you know, and we may come away with it sort of realizing that we were wrong, or we were right but off, or we were right, you know, whatever the case is. I think doubt is good in cases where we engage with it and we don't let it crush us, if that makes sense. So that's what's on my mind right now. Those are the things I think I believe right now when I think about tarot. And I guess the final thing is the name of the hashtag. I believe in tarot. I believe it works. So those are mine. I hope this is interesting, and I hope engaging and fun. And again, if you decide to do this, definitely post a comment so that I know you did it, or if you can post the link. I don't know, sometimes links will get marked as spam if you post them in comments, but sometimes they don't. So, you know, give it a try or not. But that's that. So I look forward to engaging with folks who find this interesting. I hope you have a great week. I probably won't be making any videos for a week or so, because I'm about to open a play that I wrote this week, and it's just you know, a crazy amount of nonsense, and but good nonsense. It's nonsense in a good way. And then you know, it may be tough because after that I'm going to the Reader Studio in New York. So if you're going to be there, I'd love to know, just to see, you know, maybe if you've never been before, we can chat and prepare, because I am totally nervous about going, just not even intimidated about going, just, you know, being kind of a naturally introverted person. I get I get socially anxious. So anyway, this month is going to be busy, but they've all been busy this year. So I'm going to shut up because I have been rambling far longer than I intended to. Have a great afternoon. Hashtag I believe in tarot if you do this. And if you're watching this, consider yourself tagged. Have a great week.